Hey everybody, Scott Spreitzer here, DocSports.com. It is Sunday, July 29th, 2018. We've got our ACC conference preview from a Vegas perspective coming up on this report. Also a free pick from Sunday's Major League Baseball. We'll get to that. First, a quick note, if you've yet to become a member over at DocSports.com, it's easy to do. You click on the link below the video, set yourself up for a free $60 account. I think you'll be glad you did. Also, check out the early bird packages in both college football and the NFL. This will be my first exclusive season over at DocSports.com, and our college football and NFL plays will be released only at Doc Sports. NFL preseason package is available right now. Of course, we are just a few days away. It kicks off on Thursday with the Hall of Fame game. And again, those online picks that we've posted in college football, currently on a 101 and 67, 60% winning run. In the NFL, 58%, our last 300 plus. And also, don't forget, we will be talking quite a bit throughout the course of the season in the NFL with the Westgate Super Contest. Myself and my teammate placed in the top 20 a couple of years ago, over 1,400 entries. We'll be back teamed up again and doing so again this year. But the early bird package is available right now, along with Sunday's baseball release, premium play over at DocSports.com. The premium play of baseball available Sunday after 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. All right, as we've been promising, we're back to our college football conference previews. We've already done 4 or 5, and now we'll jump into the ACC. And again, we could talk about every team in depth, all 12 teams in the ACC, but we're not going to spend 3 or 4 hours of your time doing so. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the front runners. You know who they are. We'll talk about them a little bit. And we'll give you a dark horse a little bit later in the report. If you agree with those opinions, obviously you can plunk your money down on those and take your shot with the dark horse. And also at the end of the conference preview, we'll have our favorite spot for the opening week of action from an ACC-involved game. Let's jump into it. Nobody is going to shock anybody by saying the Clemson Tigers are by far the best team in the ACC. Not going to shock anybody if they're back in the college football championship at the end of the year once again. The most interesting part to me about the ACC going into 2018 is the balance after you look at the top team in the conference. Eliminate Clemson from the top. We'll talk about them in a bit, but if you cut off the top, which is Clemson, you cut off the bottom, which is Virginia, then you got a lot going on in the middle. There are 4 teams with wins totals in Vegas casinos of 7 and 7.5. There are 2 teams at 6.5. There are another 6 ACC teams with wins totals of 5.5. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that all 11 of those teams are equal. You have to factor in schedule and that kind of stuff, of course. But I do have 6 teams in the ACC power rated within 3 points of each other, a 3-point line of each other. 6 teams, half a dozen. And again, we could probably spend an hour alone on the Clemson Tigers. And according to my power ratings, they are by far the best. There's no team in the ACC that would be less than an 8-point underdog on a neutral field to Clemson as far as my preseason power ratings are concerned. Miami, the closest to Clemson, and they would be a good 8.5, 9 points. Again, my power ratings, not the spread, as far as where they would be on a neutral field to the Tigers. Let's talk about Clemson for just a second before we move on. Of course, Kelly Bryant is the returning quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, the best passer that Clemson has. The offensive line, 3 starters back. I think they'll be even better at pass blocking than they were a year ago. Like the receiving unit, what I'd like to see more out of this team, if we want to nitpick, if we want to split hairs, is the opportunity to get the football down the field through the air a little bit more often and a little bit more efficiently than we saw from last year's team. And we're really nitpicking here with the Tigers. But again, I'd like to see a better downfield passing game, at least a little bit more consistent with deep passes. Defensively, forget about it. This is almost an NFL style and talented defense that's going to be coming back to the Clemson Tigers this year. Everybody up front could have gone to the NFL early. They all came back. The linebacking unit is great. The secondary is great. There's not a hole in this defense for the Clemson Tigers. They should be at least as good as last year's stop unit. You look at the schedule. They open at home against Furman. They've got the game at Texas A&M. Could be a little bit tricky, but they should come away with the victory there, although remember, they did lose at Syracuse last year. They've got at Florida State on October 27th. I think Willie Taggart will have the Noles as a contending team by year 2, maybe year 3. Maybe not this year as far as being able to knock off a team like Clemson, but they will be dangerous. After Florida State, Clemson has 3 home games and a roadie to wrap up the season against South Carolina. That's the home game, the big rivalry that they'll wrap up after those 3 home games mixed in with South Carolina, all coming after that game against Florida State. I think they go at least 7-1 in the ACC and likely 11-1 overall. Clemson Tigers, obviously the class of the conference, and may pull off a national title. Miami ought to be the Tigers' stiffest competition. One would think. My power ratings have the Hurricanes as the second best team in the entire conference. Like Clemson, the Canes are going to be led by a top-notch defense, great pass rush, solid linebackers for Miami too, ridiculously strong secondary. Their secondary may be just a tad better than Clemson's. Offensively, the skill positions for Miami are good, not great. They got to find a worthy quarterback to operate this offense and take them to the next level, talking about the Hurricanes, and they've got to find a quarterback who can produce better results on third down conversions. Not good last year. They open on Sunday, September 2nd, a game in Arlington, a 3-point favorite over a beatable LSU team, but lose that one. They should win, but lose that particular game, and things could go sour. You never know with this Miami Hurricanes team. Get by LSU in non-conference action, and then get into the conference portion of the schedule after a couple of games. And I think Miami's probably likely to go 6-2 in conference play. Sounds about right. Easy schedule for the most part, manageable at the very least, and a coastal title and an appearance in the title game of the ACC for the Miami Hurricanes. As far as what I'm concerned, when you look at the hiring of Willie Taggart in Tallahassee, obviously Eugene, Oregon's lost, Tallahassee, Florida's gained. I know Willie Taggart hasn't produced conference championship after conference championship, bowl wins, all that kind of good stuff. But boy, does he know how to build a program before he leaves, and then other coaches come in and find success. And I think that this, Jimbo Fisher, that hiring, 8 years ago now when Bobby Bowden stepped down, Jimbo Fisher was the right man for the job, but things kind of went south. Once he had 12 losses over the last 3 years, he was 5-6 when he stepped down last year, and then they had the interim coach come in and lead them to 2 wins to wrap up the season at 7-6. Listen, the early injury to DeAndre Francois really kind of derailed their season early on, talking about Florida State. And you could see that Jimbo Fisher's tactics really did wear thin on a lot of the players. He lost the team. It was the right move that Jimbo Fisher decided to leave Tallahassee with a good, healthy nudging from the administration, from the athletic department, and move on to Texas A&M. I love the hiring of Willie Taggart. Listen, I think this guy is going to work wonders at Tallahassee. The reason I think they're maybe a little bit overvalued to start the 2018 campaign is because right now it's kind of square pegs in a round hole. He's got to take pro-style players, as far as pro-style sets, that kind of stuff, on offense, and fit them into his system, which is more of the spread type of offense that has become modern, the modernized way in college football. So I don't think they get that done all in 1 year. I think they got a good shot to surprise a couple of teams along the way, get better as the season progresses. And, of course, they'd like nothing better than to beat the Clemson Tigers in late October. I like the fact that Taggart hasn't really named a starting quarterback and hasn't cemented the spot as of yet. But listen, the offensive line is questionable. The skill position players, again, used to pro sets, pro style, more than they are what Willie Taggart's going to bring to this. And I just think it's a situation where, yeah, this team was just a handful of plays from 10-3 last year, but I think probably a 7-win season in all likelihood is what happens to be in the cards for the Florida State Seminoles. Whole lot missing from last year's defense. Going to be tough to top those 7 wins. I've got them going 500 in conference play. But again, if Taggart can get these guys on the same page with that new offensive set and not be hurting on defense against the better teams on their schedule, they got a shot for an above 500 finish in the ACC. They should go bowling, whether they get used to that new style of offense or not. So that takes the Noles out of the mix for me for a dark horse from a betting angle. Miami too short for me at 3-1, even though they don't have to come out of the Clemson division. They come out of the Coastal. In the Atlantic, you've got BC, who returns a ton of experience, Boston College. But the way the ACC schedule falls, and I'm checking out again right now, it's not going to be easy for Boston College. Not an easy conference slate, no doubt about it. And again, they do have the experience, but I think that schedule is going to keep them from getting as far as they want to be this year. Louisville has little experience. They've got the new quarterback. 6-2, though, is possible for the Cardinals. And that's basically because that schedule is quite manageable, much more manageable than Boston College, even though BC is at least as good as Louisville on paper in my power ratings also. You've got NC State, you've got Wake, you've got Syracuse, all close in the Atlantic. I mean, these teams are just a point or two apart as far as my power ratings are concerned between those three: North Carolina State, Wake Forest, and Syracuse. I mentioned Miami, your likely winner. Everybody's counting them on as being the winner in the Coastal. Virginia Tech, the second best team in the Coastal as far as I'm concerned. More than a field goal, but less than a touchdown is what I would make Virginia Tech as a dog to Miami on a neutral field, maybe 3.5 to 4 points. But they're only 8 to 1, and that's why I don't want to jump on Virginia Tech and give them out as a dark horse. So here's the deal. I can't pick a dark horse out of Clemson's division. Clemson's just too good. But in the Coastal, you've got a North Carolina team at 60 to 1. These are Westgate numbers. They've been a sexy dark horse for some. You've got Duke at 40 to 1. They could challenge Miami. Don't count out Pittsburgh at 6 to 1. Listen, Pittsburgh doesn't have to play Clemson, Florida State, Louisville, and Boston College, making their slate rather manageable out of the ACC Coastal. They'll be, by the way, the Panthers 1-1 when they host their ACC opener against Georgia Tech. They're going to win their softie, likely lose to Penn State. But I have Pitt at 6-6 overall, but 5-3, certainly not out of the question in the ACC. The schedule, again, not difficult. Narduzzi needs to get more out of his offense. There's no doubt about that. They do have, 7 new starters on this offense. That might be a blessing. It might be a situation where they get better by the players they've lost and the new players coming in. I think they're going to be more talented than last year's offense. They just need to gain experience early on. And this defense, by the way, should be Narduzzi's best since he's been the head coach at Pittsburgh. North Carolina, by the way, guys, they would have been our dark horse, but man, I can't get past all those off-field distractions going on right now. Possible suspensions. We've heard multiple possible suspensions. And the trouble that Larry Fedora is in for speaking his mind about CTE, it just seems like there's way too many distractions to not cause Carolina some problems along the way, especially if they stumble maybe early in a game they're not supposed to. Those distractions off the field could really start to add up. On paper, 60 to 1, North Carolina looks like a pretty good dark horse coming out of the Coastal, but we're going to side with Duke, followed by Pitt as a couple of dark horse plays if you feel like you must play a dark horse in this year's ACC. Again, the number one thing for me to pick a dark horse in the Atlantic Coast Conference was a team coming out of the Coastal that has to deal with Miami, maybe Virginia Tech, rather than having to deal with the Clemson Tigers. All right, opening week of the ACC, one of our favorite plays is Tulane plus 7.5 or more over Wake Forest. That game is on Thursday, August 30th. Wake has some suspensions of their own. Their quarterback, Kendall Hinton, he's going to miss the first 3 games. I expect more out of this Tulane offense this year than what we saw last season, and that means that defense gets to stay off the field a little bit more and get a breather or two along the way. And by the way, this number's come down quite a bit from where the South Point opened it way back in May or June. It's also come down in other books. We've seen it go from 10 down to 7, 7.5, as low as 7, and I've seen as high as 8.5. Grab those points. You can find 8, and that's what I like. Tulane plus 7.5 or more. Thursday, August 30th. Shop around. You'll find a good number, even better than 7.5. All right, don't forget what's going on Sunday. We've got a premium baseball play. We've got our early bird discounted packages in both college and pro football. Don't forget to get that preseason NFL package because we're just, 4 days away from the Hall of Fame game. Free pick for baseball on Sunday. We're going to back the Washington Nationals, laying about $1.45 over Miami. You know the Nats lost a tough one on Saturday, 2-1 in extra innings. It snapped a 3-game winning streak, but the Nats look to bounce back against Jose Arena, who's 2-10, hefty ERA over 4.6. He's yet to gain a win at home, 0-8 on the season, and he's 0-5 with about a 6.30 ERA in day games. The Marlins, by the way, they've won just 7 of the last 27 Arena starts overall. Free pick, Hellickson and the Nationals. We're going to lay the money line price over the Miami Marlins in Arena. All right, if you like what you see, click on that thumbs up button. Be sure to subscribe. We appreciate those who have done so thus far. We will be back with our normal report Monday, 4 a.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. Pacific time, and coming up in a couple of days, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll talk about some ways you might want to look into when it comes to beating the books in the NFL preseason. We'll have both video and we'll have an article up over at DocSports.com by Tuesday or Wednesday. Again, back Monday morning, 4 a.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. Pacific. Let's put Sunday in the win column. I'm Scott Spreitzer at DocSports.com.